Hello! This is aParently, a conversation between parents. And I am your coach, Shawn Hopkins. This podcast was made for moms and dads and grandmothers and grandfathers and aunts and uncles and kinship caregivers, nice neighbors, single parents, and all people raising people. Welcome to aParently. Today I'm talking to a good friend of mine by the name of Brad Sparks, and he's got a lovely family. Married his high school sweetheart. His son is 5, Abbott, and his daughter is 8, third grade, going on 30. That's Rowan. So we're going to talk a lot about them. We're also going to talk about anger. We're going to talk about how long do our kids really need us? Really? Oh, having a really mature kid, way more mature than the other kids. How do we handle that? Lots of stuff, lots of fun stuff. And you get a front row seat. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Like, subscribe, share, all that jazz, so other parents can find this as well. And free coaching is available. Go to ShawnHop.com. Let's talk about whatever it is you want to do as a parent, and I'll help you get there. I promise. I love to do it. Let's get on with the pod. Thank you very much for tuning in. Bye-bye. Brad Sparks, my friend. Brad, how long have we been friends? 8 years?
Yeah, it's almost a decade.
Yeah, 8 years. So, Brad, you have been attending my monthly poker game for about 8 years, and now you have moved your tush and your whole family out to Illinois, and hopefully you are listening to some Sufjan Stevens while you're out there. So, hey, thank you so much. I know your kids, I know your wife, I know you. I love all of you, and I'm really excited because through you taking me down in cards when I make a really, really bad call like I did on Friday, God, I really thought, no, you know what? I've thought about this a bit from that hand. So I had finally got my chip count back up, and I'm up against the chip leader at that point. And I am feeling I'm in love with my hand instead of thinking about what you're doing and what your cards are. I'm just thinking very stubbornly about my hand and thinking, nope, finally I got a good hand and I'm going to push it. And that's where I blew it. I'm so mad at myself. So mad. But you did great, and you often do great in poker. And let's talk about how you do at parenting. So thank you so much for attending this conversation with parents. Glad that you are here, my friend. Tell everybody who you are and why they should listen.
My name's Brad. I grew up in Illinois, met my wife in Illinois. We actually went to the same school as the same elementary school, but we didn't start dating until high school. We did different colleges. Long story short, kind of became an adult when we moved to Colorado because that's where we had kids. We have 2 kids, 8 and 5. Abbott is our 5-year-old and Rowan is our 8-year-old. And then, just because of some job changes and self-evaluation, we ended up moving to Chicago early part of last year, after about 10 years in Colorado. So
glad you're here. Glad to have played with you, even if you took me down. So thank you very much. Tell me a little bit about your kids, man. Tell everybody about your kids.
Yeah, so Abbott's 5. Rowan's 8. Rowan was born that would be 2017. Okay, so really, I think my wife and I have nature versus nurture conversations all the time, and it's just interesting to think about. So I bring up when they were born because I think it's important in the context of those conversations. But we like to travel. We like experiences. We're very, I think, like late stage millennials in that regard. And so Rowan, I think before she was 2, had done 24 planes.
Wow.
She just joined our lifestyle, kind of did everything with us. She's very independent. Like she is very strong-minded, independent. When we moved to Chicago, she's like, "Hey, can I like hop on the L and just go around the city by myself?" And we're like, "It's very sweet of you." Whereas Abbott, 5-year-old, born 2020, like May 1st, 2020. So like smack dab pandemic, right? And so he's just very, very different personality. And we don't know if it's like because he's the younger kid, or it's because he was, I mean, literally sheltered, like literally. It's not even figuratively. And so much like sweeter, sensitive. I mean, he's so sweet, and he's also smaller. Like I'm a big guy, and my daughter is big. Like she's tall. Where Abbott's like small and just funny, snuggly, but also not as adaptable, right, to life. So that's kind of like high level.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Not as adaptable to life.
He doesn't like. I just think when things get hard, he doesn't respond as well as Rowan would. Like Rowan has very much this attitude of like, let's figure it out. I'm gonna solve it. And sometimes it like goes through the other end of like bowl in a china cabinet, you know? Yeah. Where Abbott much more is like folds. He just kind of folds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you think that, and from my time being around them, I feel like that lends itself to big sister and little brother. She's fixing his problems. She's telling him how to do things. She's bossing him around, and he's like, "Yeah, sure, okay, whatever."
He loves it.
I'm following along. Yeah.
Shawn, I was grocery shopping yesterday, and he wanted to sit. And I mean, he's 5. Again, he's a small 5-year-old, but he's 5. Like he wanted to sit in the shopping cart. So he's sitting in the shopping cart, and then Rowan is like, "Can I push?" Like she wants to do all the adult things, so she's pushing. And so I'm just like walking up in front, I'm almost in my own land, like just throwing stuff in the cart while they're pushing, like she's the mom almost, and like pushing the baby. And then he got tired, and so he like laid on her and like almost fell asleep as she's pushing the cart across. And I'm like, it is exactly the dynamic.
Well, what do you think? What do you think that's going to lend itself to as they become adults?
I don't know. This is a good question because my sister and I almost the same. Like my sister is 3 years older than me, and it's fascinating because like I'm very strong-willed. I have a strong personality, much more like Rowan. But I think there were times like hearing my parents talk about growing up where I was like that, right? Like I just had an older sister and I let her boss me around, and I was more of like the baby in the family. So I don't know. It's hard to like forecast how that will morph into what they're like as adults, only because of my own experience. Like I don't know, you know what I mean? Because I would say that like I would probably jump to conclusions on, but then I actually look at my own experience. I was like, actually, I think I would prove those conclusions to be wrong.
Yeah. It's funny. I just got distracted because I was thinking about the hand.
I didn't even win. I think that's Matt's first time that he ever won.
Matt won?
Yeah.
Glad you're here, and I want to hear a little bit about, now you've been traveling, so there's a lot that goes on along with that. You've had the holidays. What do you look back on all these things and think, as a dad, I think I'm doing okay. I feel like I did pretty good there. What are you proud of yourself for?
Also, I love that mug.
Like that. My mom, it's funny. My mom got me this mug, and I'm sure that it's her own fears, considering that I'm doing a parenting podcast. Like she's probably thinking at some point he's going to say, and my mom was so mean to me.
How mean was she?
Not at all. Not at all, mother. You were lovely, wonderful.
So it's interesting. I'm like I've been working a lot on myself since 2016. I've done a lot of like self work. And one of the things that I'm always working on, my personality is very black and white. Um, and I wish I lived more in the gray a little bit. Like I try and make an effort to do that. But all that being said, I actually, yeah,
Hey, Brad, wait a second. When you say your personality is black and white, can
yeah,
you describe that a little bit?
like I see things as very like right and wrong. This
Okay.
is how something should be done or not done, right? And
Got it.
and as other people are probably listening to this, and like if they have that personality, that's really hard when you parent,
Mm-hmm.
because you just can't be that rigid. I mean, kids
Sure.
don't let you be
Right.
that rigid, right? But I actually think in that vein, like which what I'm proud of as a parent, and what maybe is also the least proud of, like, is that I have great experiences with my kids, right? Like we'll like belly laugh, like we'll do something together and just like start belly laughing, or like we'll get really into it, uh, or we'll have a day trip somewhere in the city and we'll just have a blast, right? Those are the things that I think like I'm really good at. And I think that actually we were talking about this a little bit. Like I think it also extends to how we've lived our life, right? Like the big picture things that we think are important as a family, like we've done.
Mm.
And it's like very big, right? Like those are like, it's like big moments, like big vibes, big experiences. Those are the things I'm the most proud of as a parent. But on the flip side, you actually spend more time in the small moments.
Yeah.
So
That's your parenting win?
sure, that's a win.
Okay.
I mean, a win doesn't feel like
that
concrete. That doesn't feel concrete, but
no, I mean, but that's kind of um yeah, I think what I hear you saying is that you and your wife had ideals going into parenting, and you feel like you've accomplished those.
um, I think I don't know if it's as explicit on the ideals as it came to parenting. I think it was on the ideals of what we want our life to look like and the footprint we want to have in the world, and how that's
Okay.
important to teach our kids that. If you were to ask me like the parenting ideals, uh, that's actually really good that you bring that up, because I don't think I don't think we've ever had like sat down and been like, it's just like something that's more instinctual to us. We haven't like ever sat down and said like, what would our parenting ideals be? Like we haven't had
Yeah.
conversations around that, right? And that's actually really interesting, because now that you say it, I'm like, man, that would be a really helpful conversation to have.
Yeah.
Because it would give me, I've actually said this. The thing that I struggle the most with as a parent is I can be like absent-minded in the small moments, or not as gentle as I'd want to be, right? Like when things don't go well, like when it's not the black and white, right? Uh, and I've said this to Libby a while ago, is that in business or in your career or in a specific thing you want to achieve in life, there's like a concrete end, and you can work towards that end because you know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
There's no end in parenting, right? Like it's just always there. And so
Yeah.
that actually is really overwhelming to me. And so now as we're having this conversation, it's a little bit of an epiphany moment. Like if you have the conversation of like, what are your ideals as a parent? It almost puts a little bit of it. It's not like an end, but it actually puts like a measuring stick.
Sure.
That I think would actually really help me.
And it doesn't. I appreciate that resonates, because so one of the things that I've challenged myself with, being a older dad, is how much. So I feel like my kids really need me today, but I feel like they're going to need me a lot more when they're older.
Yeah.
Like, just
Why do you say that?
because I need older, wiser people who have unconditional love for me to make me feel like this is okay, like to make me feel like this is normal, to see that I'm going through something and saying, Yeah. This is the rough part of the ride, and you're going to make it through. And you're probably feeling this way, and you're probably feeling that way. And, filing for bankruptcy sucks, but it's a blip. It's a blip. Um, when your kid runs away from home because they can't have a good argument with you and you feel like a failure, yeah, I got you. I totally understand. You know what I mean? So when I think of my parenting ideals, there's a part of me that thinks, I think there's a part of me that has thought, man, 18 years, and I was thinking about with Juan, in fact, it was when he was like 7, maybe. I was like, man, I've got 11 more years before he's graduated and moving on, as if that was a finish line, as if I'd be done at that point. But as years have gone by and he's 11 now, I'm thinking, God, I have got to lose weight. I have got to exercise more. I have got to take better care of myself because I need to be around for those days. They're going to need me then. You know what I mean? So the parenting ideals, I think, evolve as you start to understand your kid more. And there are milestones you reach whenever they're younger, and you overcome these hurdles that are foundational, of course, but there's a whole nother foundation being built when they become adults. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I want to I know this is your podcast and you're the expert here, but
expert.
I want to I want to dive into something and push on something a little bit.
Sure.
If I can. Yeah. I don't know why it's not sitting great with me to hear you say your kids will always need you.
So I think I know what you're saying. So maybe it's not that they'll need me. Maybe it's more that the value that we bring. So kids, so we put so much work into kids because they're vulnerable, they're young, and their brains aren't formed yet, and they need our protection, and they need our money, and then they become adults and they're going to be independent, and they deal with their own stuff and that kind of thing. But the value that we bring as parents whenever they are swimming in the world of other adults and they're managing mortgages and they're juggling jobs and they have their own kids that are causing a ruckus, the value that we bring then is also huge. And it's something that I guess I want to be there for. And maybe it's a sensitive issue because I am an older dad, but I do think that I think I'll bring a lot of value. I think parents bring a lot of value to kids when they're older, if they don't check out as parents and then just say, hey, you got to figure this shit out on your own. It's more so they get to figure out the real value of having somebody like that in your corner. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. That makes more sense. And I've actually thought about this too. I shouldn't, because each stage is really precious and there's a lot of things to cherish. I long for those days. I like interacting with peers, especially if I feel like I can add value to their lives or vice versa. And I think that's what you're hinting at a little bit, is at that time, they become an adult and they need help with adult things, right?
Yeah.
You can do that. Yeah. So I get that. Okay. That makes sense to me.
And I think too that, I think the older I get, the more I realize I took adulthood for granted. I think I thought I'd have things figured out and then I'd be more stable and confident in my ability to navigate adulthood. But especially having been a father for a short period of time, and doing it by myself, which is not what my parents did, and going through this economy, struggling with jobs and a pandemic, I feel like this is the time where the real so I keep sharing with my kids. I keep thinking that I have value to my kids because I was once in elementary school, or I once had a crush, or I had a friend fall out, or I wasn't picked to be on a team, those types of things, or puberty and responsibility, stuff like that. I feel like, man, I'm bringing so much to the table for my kids, right? But I think that the adulthood stuff is where I am going to bring some real value to their existence. And I think part of that is what I have created in their own minds, like the expectations of, hey, once you have that job and once you have found your forever partner, and you're established in the community and stuff like that, then you'll have things figured out, but you really don't.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I've had to ask for more help,
Yeah, this is not an organized thought before this, so I'm just gonna say it, and if it makes no sense, just edit it out. But
okay.
I think, do you remember when you were in elementary school and you looked up to your teachers and they were infallible, right? They were perfect people. You thought they could do nothing wrong. They were almost like little mini deities, just that's how we viewed them as.
Yeah.
As I've gotten older, what I've realized is it's not it doesn't matter what age I'm at. It doesn't matter what stage of career I'm at. Everyone who's my peer just it actually feels like we're all going through life and nobody has it figured out. Kind of, as younger people, we thought everyone had it figured out. And now what I'm realizing is that literally nobody has it figured out. And so we're all almost just like kids. We're just still going through life with the same fears and concerns that we always had. But now we have much more, the impact of our decisions means more. We could be homeless. We could impregnate someone. We could hurt someone. And so therefore we act like we've got it figured out. And then we're all going around acting like we've got it figured out, which actually makes you isolated because no one's saying don't have it figured out. Right. But what I've realized is we're all still kind of like children, right? We just have a different mask on or a different facade.
Right. And I'll add to that since there's so many people acting like they've got it figured out, then we don't rely on one another. We don't realize the value of community, the value of being vulnerable with another person and saying, I really don't know what I'm doing. And I really do. The value of, and this is the whole goal of this podcast, something I have discovered in the interviews and the conversations that I've had is how my heart leaps whenever somebody says something that I go, ooh, me too. And it's no small ooh, because it's huge to feel like I've connected and that I'm not a monster for how I'm responding or acting to situations with my kids, or the fear that I have, yeah, I think I think that's where we miss the mark as a people. So I went to a great church in Tampa, and I loved all the people in that church. But when I went through my divorce with my wife, which was public for people who attended that church together, um, showing up at church feeling very anxious, because I was there solo. And then I also had that fear of her showing up, but I showed up feeling just ugly, incomplete, dirty, but I dressed as best as I could, and I put on this great face, and there were so many people there, mom, dad, kids, all matched. They were super happy to see one another, big hugs. And not a lot of people would ask me like how I was doing. I think it's because they as well felt like it was awkward, to ask that kind of question. But it caused me to not want to go to church. It caused me not to want to be a part of that community. And it's because we all showed up with our Sunday best on, and we had our, you overhear the people talking around you, and they're talking about like really good things that happened. Yeah, we just went out and caught, some grouper last week on the boat out in the Gulf, and it was great. Like, what are you doing? Hey, just closed that big deal. And hey, little Jeffrey here, he got a home run yesterday. Like, every story we were sharing with one another was like the tops, the best possible thing that just happened to us, So that idea, it's almost like if you're going to go to church, show up in your worst. Show up looking like you just rolled out of bed,
Yeah.
And then people will feel more welcome, to share what's going on. But yeah, I think the same thing with to coincide with what you were saying, unless we're able to admit the fact that we don't get it, that we don't have it, and that we aren't figuring it out, and that we are incomplete in certain ways, we can't relate unless we got a story, unless we got a good story to tell, unless we are looking our best, and we are wearing, and our kids and I match, that kind of thing. So
yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that's a good point. I appreciate you bringing that up. So, something that I'm working on, and I wonder if I feel like maybe you have dealt with this a little bit in your house, but my boys are angry boys. They deal. Their biggest emotion is just anger, rage. Miguel doesn't come home from work or anything without loaded up and ready people he can talk trash about, bad things that happen to him. Just he thrives on anger. And we had a tragedy this week. A member of his family passed away, and the only thing that the boys could connect to was anger, just deep anger. And I feel like that's pretty consistent with them. So I've been trying different ways to help them process that better, but it's such a constant effort, and it could be from their trauma. This is just how they deal with, having been taken away from their home. How do you deal with anger with your kids, and how do you help them process that anger and move past it, if you do it all?
Yeah, I think this is the one I'm probably working on the most, because it's interesting. Abbott is not an angry kid. Abbott models what he sees as anger, but it's really easy to get at, because you make him laugh, or you tickle him, or you snuggle him, and he's fine, right? Like it's more like what we were talking about earlier, like the resilience piece, right? Like that's more of what he struggles with. I almost like there are times where I wish he had more of that, like, because I think like anger a lot of times can be rooted in a desire to have control, and you don't have control. And it's you're never, like, a lot of times you don't have control. We were just talking about that, right? Like we just try to put it aside. But like I do think sometimes for him, I would like to see it. Like I'd like to see that passion, that drive, like that sense of justice or right and wrong, or like this is what I want. And I can't get it. And so you get like that. That's where I hear that like deep-seated anger coming from. Now on the flip side, like Rowan, that's also, she's like, I resonate with a lot of what you're just saying, because that's how Rowan responds. And so that's the opposite. Like, and for her, it's like, how do we show her that it's okay to not be in control, that the way you see the world isn't always how it's going to be. And that's hard. Like, I don't know. That's what I still work on, because I don't meet it. Like my default is also to be that. And I've like polished it as I become an adult. So it's not so like rough and unpalatable, right? Like I've tried to like morph it into ways that can be helpful to those around me, and like actually like drive positive action, as opposed to just like chaos. But I'm not very well versed in like how to meet her anger with like a balm, you know what I mean? To like kind of like move her off of it, or to see like it's okay. Yeah. So yeah.
So we try some different things where, so when they're angry, and this gets the biggest eye roll, but before you launch into your rage, can you give me 2 things that went well today, or 3 things that went well today before we get into what went wrong, right? So we try that. And again, eye roll city, eye roll junction, just, it almost makes them more angry. We've tried like, meditation, just being able to have more control over the thoughts. So I think that that's something that will be really helpful in a lot of ways, being able to control the thoughts, right? But I think that that's such a lofty goal. Like it's something that mindfulness is something you can start to try to teach a kid, but ultimately, they're just not gonna get that right away. Just like, I haven't gotten it right away either.
Yeah.
But I guess my fear is that in the absence of me coming up with a new way of, or the effective way of dealing with it, I'm hoping that they can figure it out. But if they can't, then man, we're in trouble. So let's take, for example, whenever Rowan shows anger towards Abbott, like how do you manage that?
Yeah. I think our default is like, let's just get space, right? Like take some space. Abby, you go in your room. Well, they share rooms now, but like, I also think as you were saying this too, to some degree, I think we're all babies. I know we were just talking about how we're all children, but actually I think we're all babies to some degree. So what I've been realizing is like our first line of defense, especially when Rowan's angry, is like, has she eaten? Right? Like,
yes.
Like, is it just time for a snack? Right? Like, is she overstimulated? Is it just go time, take some time? Like, we're not going to talk to you. Like, you don't need to talk to us. Just go take some time. It's like almost like that's the first thing. And then now this new one, which is just like the hormone changes. She's 8 but she's like a mature 8-year-old, and she's like moving into puberty. So it's like, is this just hormonal? Like, I'm not going to logic my way out of this. There's nothing I can do. And it's just the way it is.
Right.
So those are like the three almost like checks that we do before we try to actually then start to get like deep problem solving. Because sometimes those that's just what it is, right? But it's harder. This is actually probably a different one than her showing anger towards me. I think a lot of the times, like the anger towards me, one thing I've found is really good is like usually it gets pretty heated and fiery, and it will end like in a slamming of door, we separate kind of thing. One thing I find that works really well for her is like note writing. She loves like writing notes, and she'll come and like give them to me in a huff. She'll storm out of a room and she'll put a note in front of me and be like, "Dad, I'm mad at you, but I still love you. I'm sorry." It's great. Love it.
That is,
and then we'll have like a little like note exchange, us three.
and you write back.
Yeah, hey, I'll slip it under her door and knock on the door, and just say like little things. And it actually, it's not all like fluffy, right? It's not all like, "Thank you, love you too, dear." It's like, "Hey, I expect you to say sorry. That really hurt my feelings." Things like that. So, and actually that's taken really well. But I think it is the heat of the moment's the hardest. And then the added variable of like when she's really up in Abbott's space, that's really hard. Because then you have like that, especially just Abbott, like we said, like being more like soft and sensitive and cute and snuggly, and the baby, like you almost have this protective instinct.
Yeah.
Which that's weird, because then there's a dynamic where she's a lot of her, just like me, a lot of her like strength is also masking a lot of like insecurity. And so is like, I know she sometimes thinks that like we favor Abbott, right? So it's like, well, then in that dynamic where like she's overbearing and angry toward him and we're being protective of him, that can like reinforce that thought that it's like, we just like Abbott more. So that's like hard. It's a much harder dynamic, I think, when the kids are. So honestly, one of the things we've done or tried to do is just like let them fight it out. Like, just freaking let them go. They're kids. I remember like, that's when we grew up, and that's not always the best scenario. Like, what did you do when you grew up? But like, there was a part of growing up where like sometimes we just slugged it out. My sister and I.
Yeah.
Yeah. You kind of have to learn that. That's a skill. Like conflict resolution is a skill, and I do think sometimes like I have the tendency, or my wife and I have the tendency to like solve it before it gets there. And that actually is a disservice to our kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At what point do you step in?
When either of the kids is like getting hurt and vocally saying stop.
Right.
And it's not stopping. That's when it's like, okay, we need to step in here.
Do you give them any tools on how to deal with that conflict?
I think we model pretty well, like talking through how we could have done it better, kind of like replaying things in our head. Like, I think it's just more modeling. I don't giving them explicit tools, maybe not so much, like the letter writing, like they'll do that. They'll like,
I think that's genius, by the way.
Yeah, thanks. Rowan also has art therapy. Like she says an art therapist. And so I think for both of them, like coloring, like doing something so I think like letter writing is a part of it, but like just the skill of, and again, that's not conflict resolution between the two, but it's like calming. Like it's like a calming thing for both of them, to go color or write or something like that, is helpful. In terms of like resolving it between themselves, I think the biggest thing is just modeling it. And that's the hardest thing, I think, as a parent, because that's, again, like going back to the black and white nature, I sometimes just don't model. Like I retreat sometimes. Like I love playing video games or being on my phone, right? Like, so sometimes in those small moments, like the thing that I model most is like being distant and on a screen.
Yeah.
Which then we see our kids do. Right.
Right. That's interesting. So art therapy, can you talk a little bit about because Juan has play therapy.
Yeah.
So he'll play a video game with his therapist, and he'll actually wear,
what a gig.
I know, right? And he'll actually wear this cap that kind of, it's a neurodivergent, I don't remember what it was. I'll always get the neuro words messed up, but so she talks with him through the game, And then
Yeah.
she's also able to tell like what his brainwaves are doing during certain parts of the
Yeah.
game and certain conversation points and that sort of thing.
Libby did this for sleep. What do they call it? Um, I know what that mode of therapy is. Like Libby's done it, and she would watch The Office, and she would just sit there with like a thing on her head, and they would evaluate her brainwaves or something.
Yeah, yeah.
It worked. Well, actually, I don't know if it worked. I don't know what it did or not. Anyway, for her, she just talks to her therapist, and like, I don't know, they just like make craft, right? Like she's
Yeah.
so mature that she just loves those moments where she literally spends almost all of her time alone, dressing up as an adult, acting like she's a professional singer or a teacher. Like it's all about being an adult. Like we kind of are like slow down a little bit. Like I just enjoy being an 8-year-old. So I think that's like the best way I relate to her is almost just like hearing where she's at and having conversations with her like she's an adult. But it also like I don't love doing that because she's also 8, right? And I want to be like,
yeah,
just enjoy being a 3rd grader. Like you're gonna have to worry about later. Yeah.
Do you think she gets that?
No, I don't think so.
She's ready to accelerate.
Yeah.
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 Do you think she's more mature than most of her friends?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And this is where I felt like I didn't really come into my own until I was an upperclassman in college, because it was at that point where I felt like, okay, I can, one, have my own level of maturity where I can like relate to people better, but 2, like where like, okay, now I'm at an age where I feel like I'm around peers, right? Like people are thinking the same way, because I think I was overly mature, and it actually manifested in a lot of loneliness. And I'm doing this in therapy, is like uncovering a lot of this because I just masked it or buried it. But like I didn't have words or parents to help me great parents, but not to understand that like I feel like I'm more mature. I was more mature than all my friends. And it actually led to like a lot of like isolation and loneliness.
Yeah.
And then I would be angry, right? Like I would lash out and be angry because I didn't feel like anyone understood me.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking when it came to Rowan. Like, how do you help her avoid that?
That's hard because I didn't solve it as a kid. And now I'm like, and then I masked it, right? Like, and we've talked about this a little bit, but I think this is like a lot of the root of the binge eating disorder that I have is like, then I masked it in food, right? Like, and then I just masked it. So like, not even until now, I'm in the process now of uncovering that. So I didn't have the tools. Like I didn't know, I didn't know how to handle that. And I didn't have anyone to like help me handle that.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to learn how to handle it for Rowan and myself.
Right. How do you think, I mean, your best guess at this point, like if you know that the binge eating is directly connected to the same thing that your daughter is going to experience, I would imagine that would create some fear.
Yes. An immense amount of fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's more about like the fear around isolation and loneliness. And so like me just speaking that to her, like letting her know like, hey, I see you, like you're loved and you're cherished, you're valued, you're special. Like it was funny because when our kids were growing up, we would like really try hard not to be like, you're special. Right. Like, and it got to a point where I was like, I'm going to assume that I'm not going to stop. I don't care. Like we don't. I think it's important to not like walking around in the world like thinking you're an exceptionalist and you're unique. Like, but I think in this context, it's actually really important for Rowan to hear like, hey, I see you, right? Like I know that things feel different sometimes.
Yeah. You can relate.
Yes.
Yeah. That's great. So you can relate to it, and you don't want her to feel that isolation and loneliness. And by helping her get through that, you're talking to her about the fact that you can share with it. So she has a resource that she can come back to whenever she starts to feel that way. Like, how do I deal with that? Do you think that letting her know that she is more mature than her friends, do you think that can help further that feeling of isolation, or do you think that's helpful?
No, it's a fine line to walk for sure. Because it's like, I do think it can further it. And
Mm-hmm.
she's still in third grade, so she doesn't always have like the social skills to like not say that out loud.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good
So
point.
it's like,
Yeah.
yeah. So we've had, I've been explicit with her about that. Like, hey, I know how you feel. Like, sometimes you might see things a little bit differently. You don't need to share
Yeah.
that with people, but just know it.
Yeah.
Like, just know that sometimes you might see something and someone might see it differently. And I will say too, like, I'm not always pumping her up with like her way's the right way. You're
Mhm.
the best. You're the most mature. Like, we do a lot. Be like, hey, just think about how someone else perceived that, and maybe their way of
Mhm.
perceiving it is better, or maybe it's not. Maybe there's no value judgment. Maybe it's just different, and it's important for you to think about how it's different.
Yeah.
But these are like a lot of. I think this is like goes back to maybe all the way back when we talked in the beginning. This is like, it feels like this is a lot for a third grader to hold in their head.
Yeah.
But our perspective when we had Rowan is like, we're not going to change the way we live our life. Like, we have very open conversations about sex, and I mean, even with Abbott, 5 years old, like, we treat them as adults. And I know people might think that they might do things differently, but like, that's kind of our default, is like, we think our kids can handle a lot, and then they
Mhm.
are adaptive and resilient for the most part, and we want to give them that respect to be able to like hold on to things that are
Has that ever
multitude of things.
has that ever bit you in the butt?
No, no, I think
No?
it bites us in the butt in small ways, like having a really obstinate 8-year-old because she's strong and independent, right? And sometimes our words being used against us, which is like really hard to navigate in a tough situation, like in a heated moment, right? But those are
Yeah.
like small blips. Those are like small blips. Uh, I don't think it's ever like backfired from like a big picture standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would imagine that being a big sister, being in a household that has that type of open dialogue, um, and knowing that when you aren't, when you're feeling a certain way, I'm your resource because I know you feel that way. And I can relate and I can help you with that. Would probably make Rowan feel um, cared for, um, safe, and also in charge.
Hmm.
Like she probably feels pretty confident that she can handle most situations, that she's very capable, that she should be a leader.
Hmm.
And it sounds a lot like a pretty standard older child, uh, oldest way of operating. Would you agree?
Yeah. 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 100%. I agree with all of that.
So I think that if that's your foundation, you've probably got a lot laid down that um, you can really build off of for who she becomes as an adult, because this seems like it's building a lot of confidence for an 8-year-old. Um, and I wonder if you think about that, like what she'll become as a result of the foundation that you're building.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And there's always fear that comes in. Like, you can easily play scenarios in your head of like, well, it becomes really isolating. And then, you tend to things like, for me, it was binge eating, but it could be a lot worse than that. And so you play those things out in your head. But I actually do like have a pretty deep seated confidence of like the foundation that she has and like who she is as a person. And yeah. Yeah.
And I was just talking to another friend of mine, another parent, who we were talking about what happiness is. And we kind of went back and forth. And I think one of the things that we felt we could both agree on was that happiness is knowing who you are and being content with it.
Hmm.
And if you're instilling some of these things in her now, she probably will be pretty confident in who she is, knowing that who she is probably somebody who is a leader, somebody who could take charge, somebody who probably has some ability to make a situation for others, not just herself, but for others, a little more stable.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, as you're talking about that, I'm like thinking, I'm reflecting on, like, we are actually seeing the fruits of that in the move to Chicago, because Libby and I were really concerned, like, you're moving to a big city, it's way different, there's a lot of change, like, you know, those fears around like isolation and all this stuff like come up, and it has been the exact opposite. Like, she has thrived, she has like found a groove with her friend, like getting new friends, being a leader, like acting out of a space of like confidence. And then like a couple of parents have even come up to us and been like, hey, because there's like a couple kids that just are either new or don't fit in, and they've come up to us and been like, Rowan has been like a huge like help to, you know, Hannah or whatever. So that's like, actually, I appreciate this moment, having the time to reflect on that, because I actually think it is like one of those like ways to see that, yeah, I think the way that we've tried to parent has to this moment worked out, and there's like fruits of that.
Yeah. And do you think that she'll have a hard time relating to people that are not leaders, or do you think that she'll be a welcome leader to others?
She most struggles with people who also have strong personalities, like who are also like leader type people, that don't do it the way that she would do it. I think she does have like more of that like matriarchal vibe, right? Like taking care of like the lesser than, who aren't leaders, or who, like, she really does that. She like gravitates toward that big time. I struggle with this, is like, I feel very proud of Rowan. Like, she's a great kid. I gravitate more in the small moments, Dave. It's just easier. It's an easier personality, right? Like,
sure,
softer, cuddlier, more gentle, warmer. And that's hard. Like, that's like a hard, I've struggled with this at different stages of parenting. And it ebbs and flows. So I actually appreciate it. And I had a life coach who helped me work with it a lot of when we talked about, like, it's not equal amount of time or equal activities. It's like, what activities or things you can do with the kids that matter most to them.
Yeah.
Those moments. So I actually appreciate you talking about that earlier, because I think that's a good reminder.
Hey, Brad, I really appreciate you coming on here. I appreciate our conversation. I appreciate your friendship, and I appreciate your kids, hearing about them and them allowing you to talk about them on a podcast that millions will listen to. So
I want to say this too, Shawn, because I actually thought it was really Matt brought it up. I didn't want to like steal Matt's thunder, because I thought what Matt had said in poker was like actually really profound about like the work that you put into your kids. But even in being in this, you have something about you that, like, even being in this podcast has like given me space to reflect on my own accomplishments or what I'm working through, and that's been really helpful to me. And so I'll just say, like, but that personality trait that people have, like giving that space and almost that clarity to, like, that's a very it's like a background trait, right? Like, it's not always something that's celebrated. And so it can feel, and I know this because my wife is like this too, but it can feel kind of lonely because you don't get acknowledged for it. And you don't get the instant recognition. But like, I want to echo what Matt said, and I'm feeling it here, myself personally, is like, I think that's really special about you. And I think actually from a parenting standpoint, it will pay dividends. Like, you care a lot about your kids.
To do. Thank you.